They thought it was over after the cleansing, after Mr. Lamy was sent away, after the stool split in two and vanished into hollow dust. Silence returned to Obodo Ume. People swept the courtyard again. Children played by the palace gate. Even the chickens returned to scratching the ground. But silence, they say, can also be a lie. I hadn't touched my drum since that day, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Some beats are not meant to echo after you've heard the rhythm of something ancient. Still, life moved on. The harvest festival was postponed, and the Oba announced a month of spiritual rest across the kingdom. But strange things began again, not within the palace, but outside it. It started subtly. A girl named Ezine from Umuchi village went mad overnight. Her mother said she had only stepped into an old compound the day before. The house had been empty for years, its owner long dead. But in the sitting room was a simple stool facing the wall. They say Ezine sat on it just for a moment to rest her feet. By nightfall, she was laughing in unknown tongues and calling herself Okudili, the name of a man who died 60 years ago. Next, it was the pastor in Enuani. He claimed his church bell began ringing at midnight on its own. When he stepped out to investigate, he saw a figure seated at the center of the church, a man with no face, just a round hollow void where eyes and mouth should have been. He fainted and didn't wake for 2 days. One after the other, stories trickled in. A stool here, a carved face there. Some families discovered odd furniture in rooms they never entered, and in each case, the seat faced a wall, as though it had been turned away, hidden from view for a reason. I couldn't shake the feeling. The stool didn't disappear. It scattered. A week later, I had a dream. The stool stood before me, but it wasn't alone this time. There were 7 others, all carved with twisted legs, mouths open wide, positioned like sentries, and they were watching me. When I awoke, my walls were damp, and my window, though locked, was wide open. I ran to my uncle's hut before sunrise. He was seated outside, eyes closed, lips moving in silent prayers. "You've seen it again," he said before I could speak. "Uncle," I whispered, "you said the stool was a seal. What if it wasn't the only one?" He opened his eyes slowly, sadness pooling in them. "There were 8," he said, "forged at once for the 8 gates of the kingdom. But only one remained in the palace. The others were hidden or destroyed. Also, we thought." I couldn't breathe. "So, what now?" They are remembering. That day, I traveled to the old archives hidden beneath the palace shrine. Few people knew it existed. I had to bribe the royal scribe with my drumsticks just to gain entry. There I found a brittle scroll. On it was a faded drawing, 8 stools encircling a map of the ancient kingdom, each facing inward toward a symbol, a face with no eyes. The name beneath it read Nochi, the memory that waits. The spirit had a name, and it had reach. Every stool was a mouth. Every mouth was a watcher. And now, after one was turned, the rest were remembering what they had once been created to do: observe, collect, and return. I returned to my village and told the Oba. He summoned the elders. Some scoffed, others trembled. But that night the moon refused to rise. A darkness thicker than cloud filled the air, and from across the river, drummers began to play, except no one lived in that village anymore. It had been abandoned since the war. I didn't sleep. At dawn, a boy came running from Umoma. He found a chair at the entrance of the community market. Plain, old, but turned directly toward the road. His cousin, curious, sat on it. By nightfall, the boy was chanting like a griot from centuries ago. I knew then. The chairs were calling each other. One had been turned, and now the others were finding new places to sit. I went to the only person who could help. Not my uncle, Mama Ejike. She lived on the hill beyond the river, a woman said to speak with spirits and live between dusk and dawn. Her hut was covered in feathers and dried leaves. When she saw me, she didn't greet. "You've come about the watchers," she said. "Yes, I replied, surprised. She nodded. They are not of wood, they are memory itself, shaped to rest. When you turn memory toward the present, it speaks. When you give it a face, it chooses a new vessel. Then what do we do? I asked. She stared at me. You must collect them. All eight? She nodded once. Place them all in a circle again, but this time facing inward. That is the only way to trap the spirit before it completes its rat turn. Where do I find them? Her eyes turned white. Follow the stories. Listen for silence where there should be song. The stool will always call the curious. That night I left Obodo Ume with a goatskin bag, a charm from Mama Ejike, and nothing but my drum tied to my back. The journey had begun. I was no longer just a boy with fast fingers. I was now the one chosen to turn the watchers away before they all faced the world again. To be continued, part 3.